Live from Honolulu, Hawaii, it's Baptized by Fire. And here's your host, Justin Baptiz.
Welcome back to another episode of Baptized by Fire, Conversations with Justin, where we dive into the stories, struggles, and triumphs of our incredible guests. And I'm your host, Justin Baptiz. And we are here with a very special guest, one of the very best coming out of the Small Town U.S.A. And I'm sure he'll get into more detail on that. But one of the best, if you haven't heard about this guy right here, he is awesome. He's definitely going to be somebody you should definitely keep your eye on, especially in the comedy scene. He's been going on for the last 2 years now and has been putting in lots of great work in his comedy. And it's a pleasure to have you here. We are here with Matt King. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Good to see you here. How are you doing? And, what's been keeping you busy these days?
A lot keeps me busy because I have debilitating ADHD. So I can get busy real quick on accident. But I work a regular day job, and it's not glamorous or anything, but it works for me. And I have a kid and a girlfriend, believe it or not. And just running around. My kid's 9, so she's at that age where it's like go, 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 go all the time. And I've got her every other week, so we're back and forth with school stuff and activities and all that. And then usually I do comedy on just the weekends that I don't have my kid. And then with work and everything else, it's like every once in a while I have to just stop and I have to put out this video today, so I have to sit down and do this. But yeah, just regular stuff pretty much.
I feel you. Now, for anybody who hasn't discovered your work yet, how would you introduce yourself? And I know that your tagline is Matt King Comedy from Small Town U.S.A. So what does that phrase mean to you personally?
I am kind of a redneck, and it's not really on purpose. It's not even my fault. I didn't have a choice in the matter. Like my dad's family was proud hillbillies from the foothills of Appalachia, and my mom's extended family was from down in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas. So I was kind of born a hillbilly on accident, and then I try to act as regular as I can, but I've never lived in like any kind of major city or anything. I'm always just kind of, my house now is literally it's in town, okay, but there is cornfields on 3 sides of my neighborhood.
Okay.
In town. So if that gives you any kind of any kind of hint as to what we're talking about here, yeah.
Now, I was going through your Instagram page and I first saw your Instagram post. You had it being outside of Krackpots Comedy Club back in June of 2024. Now, I saw that old picture of you on Instagram and I'm quite curious. Would you point that to be the official start of your comedy career? And what does that specific place, mean to you?
So Krackpots is they're like a half-hour drive from my house. And it was the first actual comedy club that I went to like try an open mic. I was actually a youth pastor for 11 years. And so like public speaking kind of is kind of my bread and butter. So like I kind of was naturally past a hurdle that a lot of people have to get over. Like I can be on a stage and that just doesn't make me nervous. There's plenty of stuff that makes me nervous, but being in front of people I'm kind of an attention hog. So, but yeah, I actually, the start of my comedy career was while I was still a youth pastor in 2019. I decided, like, I would always like tell jokes and stuff while I was like talking to the kids or, preaching on a Sunday morning. Part of that's because I'm a child and I have a hard time being serious all the time. But also, I have a short attention span, so I try to keep people's attention. Like, I just try to treat everybody like they had my attention span. So people were always like, "You should try comedy." I'm like, I don't even know how you go about doing that. And so we had, we called it a praise gathering. Basically, it's a talent show. So it was Thanksgiving time, and you'd have like a big potluck dinner, and then afterwards people could go and showcase their talents or whatever. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna see what happens. And I went up and it actually went really well. I had no idea what I was doing. I did like 13 minutes or something like that. It was entirely too long for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. There was a lot of terrible segues in there, and like I still have the video, and sometimes I look at it. It went well though. Like they didn't know what they were looking at. And so I took that as like, man, I'm awesome at this already. So I was meeting with another youth pastor to have, we were going to do a collaboration for a lock-in for New Year's Eve. And I don't know if you've ever been to a lock-in. I guess I realize people probably don't know exactly what I'm talking about. That's kind of like youth pastor speak. But basically, it would be New Year's Eve. You'd spend like 12 hours. You'd have the parents drop the kids off at like 9 p.m. and come pick them up at 9 a.m. And you stay up the whole night. They play wild games and all that stuff. Because we're talking kids like middle school to high school. And so we're trying to plan out the events for the evening. And I tell the other guy, I'm like, dude, I kind of started trying this stand-up comedy thing. I could probably do some time on stage, and he's like, dude, that would be awesome. So, excuse me. I went in there thinking the last time I did this, it went great. And I brought the kids with me. They saw the last time. I didn't take into consideration that they had already seen it, so they were going to be bored with it. And excuse me, my allergies are acting up right now. The kids from the other youth group were just really great people. And that is not good for my style of comedy because I'm very self-deprecating. And so I went up there, I was talking about how fat I was, how I like crushed a chair one time, all that stuff. And they just felt terrible for me. And I'm like, I'm losing them. And I can see like my kids are not paying any attention. The other kids, they're looking at me like almost like in tears. And someone literally at one point, someone goes, I'm like, no, this is funny. You should be laughing at this. I think it's funny. Don't you? And I just bombed so hard. And like, it was he meant well by it, but the salt in the wound was the other youth pastor came back on stage when I was done. And he just kind of like looks at me and real quiet, he goes, man, I thought it was good. And I was like, oh. And then since it's a lock-in and that was like right at the beginning of the night, I'm with the people that I bombed in front of for the next 12 hours. And New Year's Eve is my birthday. So I'm there on my birthday just wallowing in self-pity. And I didn't touch it again for like 3 years. And then I don't know if this is what all you wanted to get from this. This is kind of a long thing here, but I didn't touch it for like 3 years. Then I moved away to be closer to my wife's side of the family. Things kind of fell apart. I ended up divorced. Then I was 100 miles away from anybody that cared about me except for my kid. And at that point, we didn't have a parenting plan set up. So I would get to see her every little bit for an hour or something like that. And so I got a motorcycle so that I could save on gas because I was driving a gas guzzler truck. And I'm like, I need to be able to see people that like me. So I got a motorcycle for the gas mileage. And on the 4th of July in 2023, I was riding back home. And I was coming over a hill. And when I got to the top of the hill, I could see at the bottom, there was a combine parked in one lane and a car parked in the other lane. And they're pretty close to me. I had to try and hurry up and stop. And I panicked. So I went over the handlebars, totaled the motorcycle, shattered my wrist. My hand like literally fell out of like the socket. I tore my rotator cuff and my labrum, and just road rash everywhere. And there, there's a lot more to that too. Got a ticket from the state patrol. I'm like, man, I didn't even hit anybody. Like, and I didn't know if I was going to live or die. So I just like signed off on it. Like, well, I might die. That's probably not going to get paid. I'm dead anyway. So then I survived and I had to pay it. But it was just a long road to recovery after that. Then I was at work. I'm just laying around at home, not able to do anything for myself. I'm 100 miles away from everyone that cares about me, wallowing in self-pity again. And it was just kind of around that time that, I don't try to push my beliefs on anyone, but, I pray. And I was just kind of praying like, God, I'm sad and I don't know what to do with myself. Like when I was a youth pastor, I felt like there was like a purpose to what I was doing, but now I'm working in a factory. Nobody likes me. I'm just punching a clock every day and just really depressed. And I said, I just need you to show me something. And it was right around then that I started kind of realizing like, maybe there is something to the comedy thing, and I felt like as sad and depressed as I was in that moment, I know that there's other people that have gone through way worse things. And it's a crappy fallen world out there that just, people die and things go terrible and all that stuff. And I thought, man, if there's people that feel worse than I do and I can give them like a few minutes to forget about how bad everything is and just laugh, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I started scoping out where there was open mics. I did my first actual open mic at it was like a coffee shop bar combination in Akron, Ohio. And it went well, but see, I had learned from the bomb that people are going to feel bad for me if I just talk bad about myself. So I wrote like a little setup thing, like, listen, I did this one time and people were super nice. Okay. I know what I look like. It's okay to, and it went a lot better. So then after that, I did the open mic at Krackpots, and then it just kind of like started to snowball. And I got my first paid show like 3 months in. And I was like, man, you can make money doing this. This is even better than I thought. And I was just hooked. It's like, it's my favorite thing to do. And just like, even off stage, like if I can I'm always trying to make people laugh. So like it gets me in trouble sometimes because they're like, how about you shut up and go do your job? And I'm like, well, okay. But yeah, that's what got me into comedy. That's a long answer for you asked about crackpots. I just told you my whole entire life story. So hopefully you can use some of that.
That's a pretty interesting story about how you got started in comedy, and what a way to break through and get through the comedy scene as you've been doing it for the last 2 years. But I definitely want to ask you, you started from being a youth pastor to now being a comedian. How did you get over that sense of fear? Because I know you mentioned earlier, you were a bit shy at times. So how did you get over that sense of fear?
I suppose it's not like a great quality to have, but I love attention. So like as a little kid, I'm like, my parents like to remind me now that it's like a thing that I do semi-professionally. Like, yeah, you remember some of the jokes you used to tell us when you were like 5? Like, no, I'd be in the shower thinking like, oh, this is hilarious, and I go tell my parents some like knock joke that made absolutely no sense. And I just remember I could tell they were fake laughing. I was like, dang it, back to the drawing board. I'll get them next time. But I was just kind of really liked, like I said, making people laugh. And I was, especially after that horrible, catastrophic performance at that lock-in, I was definitely a little bit shy getting up there that first open mic. But it was like once I said the first thing that they laughed at, it was like, okay. And it was almost kind of like an adrenaline rush, like, I don't know. It was like, how do I get that response again? So then it was like game on, like, oh, they're going to, I know what joke's coming up. I'm like, I bet they're going to like this one. Okay, they did. All right. The next one should, and it's like, I don't know. It's just like, I tell people that want to start, like, you just got to go to an open mic because you're never going to know if your stuff is just funny to you until you just do it. There's unfortunately there's no like fail safe, you know. So I do get that a little bit every time I write some new material. I'm like, I'll go through this phase where I'm like, man, this stuff's probably not even funny. You know, like I've just been sitting here trying to think, this stuff's probably not even funny, and sometimes it's not. But that's actually kind of my favorite part of the writing process. Is I record every set that I do like everywhere, and then go back through and kind of listen to the crowd response to things, see if maybe there's a faster way to get to a punchline or something like that. I really enjoy that part of it. So I think yeah, just once you get that first like big pop of a laugh, you're done for. You can't do anything else with the rest of your life. You know, like it's you're in it now.
You mentioned about being in the moment and being in just the atmosphere of everything, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
I've checked out your videos. Your comedy is often, very relatable. So kind of walk us through your process. How do you take an everyday, small town observation, like maybe something at Walmart or a family gathering and spin it into a solid universal bit?
So I'm very like sarcastic just naturally. I think that comes from being I'm a horrible pessimist. Like if people are like, "Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty kind of guy?" I'm like, there was never anything in the glass to start with. That's kind of my pessimism. And I used to go on these like rants like at home, and my dad and my brother would be cracking up, and it would really irritate me at the time. But then I kind of discovered, oh, maybe that's a good formula. Is like pointing out obvious annoying things that other people see and stuff like that. And also just like life is ridiculous, you know. A lot of every day something dumb happens somewhere, you know. And if you just take a second to kind of notice it or take it in, a lot of the stuff that I write is from personal experience, ridiculous situations that I've been in. Like I mentioned, crushing a chair. I was eating a sandwich at my sister-in-law's house at the time, and just heard a crack, and I was on the floor, and I like see, I wouldn't have been able to write something like that. It's just that my life is naturally stupid. So as I'm laying on the floor, my nephews are like looking at me like, should we help him or what? And I panicked and I just yelled out, I was like, I didn't drop my sandwich. Like anybody cared about that. Like I just destroyed their dining set. And I'm like, hey, sandwich is still good. I'm like, that's probably the fattest thing that anyone's ever said in any situation ever. And so I was like, every time I tell somebody this story, they crack up at it. So, I just kind of the first time I basically just told the story how it happened. And it got some laughs and stuff like that. But then again, recording it and watching it back and stuff, it was like, okay, well maybe I can point out this detail. Like the chair didn't break as I was sitting down. So like that tells me that chair was just like struggling. And with every bite of that sandwich, it was like, dude, we can't take any more. Like, and yeah, so that's just kind of like I said, you just kind of tell a story and then go back through it and see is there anything else funny that I could point out about that? And it just kind of I think it was Louis C.K. one time compared it to like a bladesmith making a sword. You take that piece of metal and you hammer it and you hammer it and you hammer it and you hammer it and eventually it becomes super smooth. And that's kind of what I do with like the bits is I'll write like either in 1 minute increments or 5 minute increments. And that's basically just because if you go to an open mic somewhere, they'll give you 5 minutes. Or if you're more experienced, they might give you like 7 minutes. So you might need to be able to add a couple of bits to it. And then beyond that, you can just stack your bits. So if you write 3 5 minute sets and then you can get a 15 somewhere, you just figure out segues to go between those three sets and then you have a 15-minute set. So like I said, I'll write in like either 1 minute or 5 minute increments. Adderall's wearing off, ADHD's taking over my brain. What was I answering there? I forget.
You answered it appropriately.
Okay.
So you've been doing comedy for the last 2 years, and I gotta definitely ask you, who are some of your comedy heroes? Are there any big name comics, or do you draw more inspiration from, let's just say, like the storylines of people that capture that that heartland or that heartful feeling?
I would say my favorite like active comedians right now. Obviously, Shane Gillis is out of control right now. He's breaking attendance records in arenas, and I think he just played Notre Dame Stadium for like 70,000 people or something like that. So he's hilarious. Dan Soder, I love Dan Soder's stuff. Matt McCusker, Mark Normand, Sam Morrill are all pretty really solid. Adam Ray is an awesome dude. I actually got to meet him. I went to a show at so I live like 40 minutes away from the NFL Hall of Fame, and so Bert Kreischer does this fully loaded tour where he just takes like a group of his friends and they tour the country, and they were stopping at Hall of Fame Stadium, and me and my friend may or may not have snuck past security down to the floor from our nosebleed seats. And we got to meet a few of the comedians. We got to meet Whitney Cummings. She's great. She's super nice and hilarious. Tony Hinchcliffe. He seems like a really mean guy when you watch his stuff, but he's a super nice guy. Adam Ray was really cool. He stayed by like the rail like the whole time, just talking to people through the whole show after his set was over and taking pictures with people and like I've messaged him on Instagram a few times when I had like 200 followers, and he would get me back and stuff like that. And that stuff's not lost on me. Like people that have time for their fans and stuff, I think is awesome. So those guys are all great. I would legendary inspiration, obviously the late great Norm Macdonald, just a legend in the game. The Sandman, Adam Sandler, he's still out there doing it. A lot of inspiration from Chris Farley. I would say he's probably kind of goated in my mind. I know he was more like the acting and improv side of things for the most part, anyway. But just like that dude, in the short time that he was on this planet, he just laid down one heck of a clinic on how to be just absolutely hilarious. He's great big guy and could move like a running back or something. Like he just was nimble on his feet, and he was super physical comedian. Draw a lot of inspiration from him. I would like to be as physical as he is one day. There's just so many out there. There's a guy here locally. He lives in Cleveland, and he was part of the original Outlaws of Comedy. He toured with Sam Kinison in the 80s, and that guy is just a wealth of knowledge. Like he's super humble, down to earth, and he'll frequent the local clubs and stuff like that. And he's just like, anytime you can get him pulled aside and ask him questions, and you're talking, he'll just talk to you like you're anybody else, and then he'll be like, yeah, I was at the Comedy Store in LA the one day. Richard Pryor was on the stage. And I'm like, how do I even know you? Like, how are we friends? This is crazy. So he's a kind of a local guy now, but he's still out touring around and stuff. But his name is Michael Chiselka. He's incredible.
So a little bit earlier, you had mentioned Small Town USA. Now I know that you're from Ohio. I think you're from Rockland, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken.
I live in a town called Rittman.
Rittman, yes, Rittman, Ohio. My apologies. Being from Rittman, Ohio, how does your small town background directly influence your material today? And is it the direct source of your jokes, or does it more so color your perspective on bigger, broader topics? I know that you mentioned a little bit earlier that, you comes from a lot of personal experiences.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think maybe just coming from like a slower moving way of life, maybe I'm a little more prone to like pay attention to little things, or people in like bigger cities and stuff like that will just, it's like sometimes the whole city could be on fire and they're just going about their day. It's like, wow, it's just another thing. It just have like big things don't happen where I come from. So like I think it probably does help to kind of stop and take things in a little bit, maybe.
Now, being that you're from a smaller area, what has been the biggest practical challenges in building your career? I know that you've been doing it for the last 2 years. Would you say that it's travel, finding a diverse audience, or would it be networking?
Probably a little bit of all of that, really. So like I'm kind of centrally located to a lot of bigger things. Like it's about the same distance for me to go to like Akron or Canton or Cleveland. Columbus is a little farther. There's a decent amount of comedy that I can get to pretty quickly. But then, yeah, when you're trying to branch out, like I've started doing some stuff kind of out of the state. I've done a little bit of stuff in Indiana. I've done some stuff in Pennsylvania. I got a run of about 4 nights, I think, close to Pittsburgh that I've got coming up here in October. Um, and I'm not to the point where I make enough to do it for a living. So like I'm going to be driving to Pittsburgh every night of those four 4 nights in a row. Like they're like, we've got an Airbnb. I'm like, yeah, but I've got a job that I just started not that long ago, so I don't really have any PTO. So I'll just be making the commute every day. So yeah, that does kind of burn up some of that little bit of money that you can get. But so that's a bit of a challenge. And yeah, the networking, it can be tricky if you're seeing the same people all the time, staying locally and stuff. But what I try to do is like if I'm getting like a guest spot or a hosting spot or even a feature spot on a show, and the headliner's coming from out of town, like you can kind of gauge if they're like wanting to hang out before or after the show, just kind of the way they carry themselves. But if they're at all open, I'm asking questions and finding out like, okay, so what's your horror story of some of your bombs? What's some of the things that you've come across that you wish you would have known about? What's your advice on this? What's your advice on that? And also just getting to know them, try to make a lasting impression so that if you get the opportunity and they want to work with you again, then that's another inroad there. So, but yeah, a little bit of all of it. But I've got a pretty decent situation as far as where I'm located. So,
You mentioned about being where you're located at currently. Has there been a specific city in Ohio that you found the most success? And, as far as like the traveling aspect of things, favorite place you've performed at besides Ohio?
that's a great question. You got a lot of good questions. I see why you do this. You're good at this.
Thank you.
Let's see. Favorite city that I've performed in. So I did a show I've got the hat on right now at the Sunshine Factory in Kane, Pennsylvania. And if you've never heard of Kane, Pennsylvania, I hadn't either. It's like in in the middle of a forest, I think. And it's just a place that's like they got a lot of sunflowers, stuff like that. Um, I got a call from a headliner that I had worked with before, which where that networking comes in handy. He just kind of like messaged me out of nowhere and was like, "All my material is clean." And so he was like, "Hey, I need a clean comic to come with me. I've got this show in Kane, Pennsylvania. It's to raise funds for the local library." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll take a show anywhere that there's a stage and a mic." So I was like, "I'm down. It's out of the state. I feel cool road tripping. And the people in that small town just like supporting their local library, they packed that place out, and they were attentive, and they just were really entertained by me and the headliner. And I don't have a lot for merch. I mostly just have like stickers and stuff like that. And I think I left there with like $70 from sticker sales because they were just all like, "Well, I want to support you and what you're doing." And I'm like, "This place is all right, man." So I would say that outside of Ohio, that's been my favorite so far. I think is Kane, Pennsylvania. We'll see how the Pittsburgh area goes. I don't know. They might take the cake. But I'm a Browns fan, so we'll see.
And on the flip side, what's an advantage to starting out in a local town that people might not be expecting? Does a strong work ethic or a tight-knit community give you an unique advantage?
Sure. I think so. So like starting in a smaller market where Krackpots is located is in Massillon, Ohio, which is basically just right on the outskirts of Canton. But it's still got like the small town vibe. And I started with a really great group of people that were also starting out. And we have like a group message and stuff, and so we're all the time pushing each other to other venues and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot more stage time in a small market. You might not get like, I mean, obviously, if you're performing in LA, you're going to be rubbing shoulders with, a lot of other comedians that have been around the block a few times, or like Austin has exploded with comedy nowadays, or New York City or Chicago or one of those places. But like out there, like I know in New York City, I have not gone there yet, but I've worked with some comedians from there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, if you want to do an open mic, you have to pay like $5 for 5 minutes." And some of those guys, they'll do open mics like every night of the week. I'm like, man, how do you afford to pay to do it? I thought it was bad not getting paid, but to pay to do it. So I would say like the smaller markets, you might not get the same amount of eyes on you, but you definitely get more time on stage to kind of like work out your stuff, some of the more famous clubs, like I'm not going to go to the Comedy Store in LA and be like, hey, I wanted to sign up for tonight. They'd be like, no. or like the Cellar in New York City or something like that. Um, at these smaller clubs, man, they'll let anybody that signs up on stage, which is sometimes rough, but it's good if you're trying to get into it. You know what I mean?
Now, since you've been in comedy for the last 2 years now, what would you say that you wish you would have known from when you first started out till now? And what's a common piece of bad advice about comedy that you've heard that you're really good at it just ignoring?
Okay, sure. So something I wish I would have when I started would probably just be relax and be flexible. Don't be married to any of the stuff. Some of the jokes that end up working the best are the ones that you flex a little bit on, like just kind of reading the audience reaction to what you're saying. And if something comes into your mind and you think it's going to work and everything you've said so far is working, take the leap, go ahead and it's kind of the name of the game is just try it and see what happens. So I was maybe a little cautious starting out. I do think it's important to not just be completely reckless, but I think just yeah, if I would have thought to be a little more flexible with some of the stuff, maybe if this isn't working, drop it and go to the next joke, and or find a place to cut it off smoothly and go to the next one. Just kind of go with the flow a little bit. And I've kind of gotten to that now, and I think that just comes from being more familiar with what your material is. Like I won't when I write stuff, I don't recommend this for other people, but just my brain works weirdly. So like I don't actually write any of my jokes down. So if I'm gonna write comedy, I'll just like sit somewhere and it's weird, but I'll just like talk to myself and I'll try to tell jokes about the material that I'm working on. And then once I get some stuff that I think fits together and all that, I'll just keep going through that like out loud. And I even sometimes I have like a little PA at my house. I'll hold the mic and I'll tell the jokes to the wall. But I don't consider anything completely written until it's completely committed to memory. And then once you've got it committed to your memory, that's when you can be more flexible. You know what I mean? Because you're not thinking about, oh shoot, what was next? You're more able to look at the crowd and see like, okay, this guy hasn't even smiled the entire time I've been on stage, so I'm not gonna look at him anymore. this lady is cracking up. So when I get into a rough patch, I'm going to this lady, So yeah, just being more flexible, being more familiar with your material, and just being able to kind of get up there and go with the flow, not wing it, but just kind of go with the flow. And the bad advice, I'm trying to think.
Just so that I can elaborate on what I'm trying to ask you is, what's a common piece of bad advice about comedy you've heard that you're really good at ignoring? And just to add to that, I know that you mentioned about your style of comedy and how you get the process going. Do you think that that's been the key to your comedy success right now?
I think so. I think it's just everybody has a different style, and it just find your style and don't try to mimic anybody or do things differently just because other people do them that way. If just because one thing works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I think if you're not authentically yourself, people are not stupid. They can see that. And that was so I was talking to a headliner one time, and he said he actually got to do a show with Bill Burr, who's another one of the greats, and the set didn't go completely the way he wanted it to, and he kind of mentioned it to Bill Burr, and he said it kind of made me mad at the time, and I realized he was completely right. He said they just didn't believe you, and he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not being you. They can see that." And so that's what I think is probably the best thing is to try and be authentically yourself. And if you're funny, it'll be funny. I would say, as far as the worst piece of advice that I commonly get, I don't know if it's necessarily advice. I just get sometimes everybody does this. I do this too. Everybody does this thing where you go up and say, that joke you told, what if you did it like this? And it's like, okay, sometimes they're great, and you're like, thank you for that. Other times you're like, well, yeah, but that's your style, and that would probably work for you. But so, yeah, just kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say on that is people are going to give you tags for your jokes, and just you got to look at it and say, it's been working the way I've been doing it, or it hasn't been working the way I do it. Maybe I'll try that. I don't know. I guess that's, I don't know if I answered your question or not. Okay.
You mentioned earlier about the tour life and that you're going around the world, you're touring, you're spreading your comedy to everybody out there. As far as moving forward in your career, what's a specific goal that you're working towards right now? Is it a specific festival, working towards a special, or simply selling out a show in the next big city over? Like, what's the future goals for you?
So I recently secured my first headline spot. That is going to be on October 19th. It's just like a small venue, but my goal for that is to absolutely pack that house. Because I'm like, this is like you're only going to have your first headlining spot once, and so I'm trying to push it out to as many people as I can get. One, because it's you know, unfortunately, being able to sell seats is sometimes even more important than whether you're funny or not. So I want to do it for that, but also just such a big deal to me that I'm going to headline a show. It's like I really want there to be a good crowd there, and not just like, well, I headlined, but it was for 4 people, and 3 of them were other comics. So I guess that's kind of my goal is selling out that show. Other than that, I want to do it for my job. So I want to get to the point where I can consistently be out there getting paid shows and being able to be flexible with travel and stuff like that, and not just be like, well, I still have a day job that I have to go back to tomorrow, so I won't be staying there. I'll be driving all night. So yeah, doing it for a career. That's the goal. So,
And if you could perform for any 3 people, living or dead, who would you want to be in the front row and why? I just thought I had the, curious question in here for you.
okay. All right. Any 3 people, living or dead? I think it would be super cool to see Chris Farley in the front row. Like I said, it's kind of my hero. Jelly Roll, try to meet Jelly Roll. So I need Jelly Roll in the front row so I can say hey to him after the show. And then the third one, just kind of sentimental. I had a good buddy that I started comedy with, just passed away a few weeks ago. He was He was coming back from a show and got in a nasty car accident. And he had the most infectious laugh. Like I go back and look at some of my videos and just like, even if some people weren't funny, if he would start laughing, the whole place would start laughing because he just had a laugh like that. So if I could have my buddy Andrew Burge in the front row one more time, that'd be pretty cool.
It's amazing, man. That's amazing. Now, earlier we talked about being from, a small town community, but I'm quite curious, being from the specific area that you are in Ohio, kind of give us a background of what's it like, growing up there. How was that? How was your upbringing been for you?
Yeah. So I think it's been good. I don't really want to live like in a city. I think if I could live in a suburb, that would be the most ideal. Just like you kind of still have a little bit of that small town, tight knit community type vibe. But if you need to run to downtown, it's only 20 minutes away or whatever. There's a lot more to do. It's definitely a challenge to find things to do growing up. I mean, me and my friends did a lot of stupid things in high school just because there was nothing going on anywhere. Just a lot of driving around to random places and standing there and talking or or whatever, try to find girls somewhere or something like that. But the flip side of it was good too. Like you could play outside when you're a little kid. You didn't have to worry about creeps and violence and things like that. And leave your doors unlocked, all that stuff. You can, you know who your neighbors are. You talk to them. People in the stores are friendly and stuff like that. Where, not that people in cities are not friendly, but usually it's busy and a little more congested, and everyone's kind of got their thing that they're doing. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't trade it, to be honest with you. I would do it all over again if I could.
Gonna do something here I've never done before, but I'm gonna do a bonus quickfire round with you.
All right.
All right, finish this sentence. If my comedy career paid for nothing else, it would all be worth for.
Entertainment of myself. And gave me gave me something to do. Something to keep me busy.
What is the one thing you absolutely must have with you backstage before a show?
I gotta have my phone, man. I got I'm stuck on these social media apps, man. They got me. I can't look away from them for that long.
And what's the one word or the phrase that gets you going when you're coming up with a comedy joke?
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Is there a specific word that you look at and say, okay, hey, that's gonna be how I write my joke? Is there a word that you use frequent?
Probably fat. I use fat a lot. I'm a very fat guy, so.
And before I let you go, there's one thing that I cannot forget. You have been known from your videos to do Donald Trump. Are there any other specific impressions that you say you're good at? And if Donald Trump could be here right now, what would you think he would say about this interview?
All right, so we'll start with some other impressions. I don't know if you saw it. I just Saturday, I think it was. I put up an RFK one. That one was a little tougher to get into. I had to dig into some videos a little bit to get a little bit more of it. But just gotta, I don't know. You just gotta have to let your voice kind of go in and out a little bit like that, and just kind of say some kind of off the wall stuff about your health and things like that. That's kind of that. Other I just had one. The legendary coach Lou Holtz of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He was saying, the boys from Notre Dame are going to go out there and they're going to put on one heck of a show. So that's that. And I think if Trump was here currently, he would probably have some critiques for me on the way I answered some questions and spoke, and he would probably try to offer some advice like, a lot of people say that
I'm one of the greatest interview people there is. I do interviews all the time, and a lot of times they're hostile, but a lot of times the people love me because most people do. That's why I won the popular vote, and I'll do it again. That's what people are saying. We have great polling numbers on my ability to answer questions.
I don't know, something like that.
And just so that people know where to find you, where can people find you? Tell us about your social medias and where people can find you. That's
All
actually
right.
good. That's really funny.
Thank you. So I do have a Matt King Comedy Facebook page that did not take off at all. Most people just go to my regular Matt King Facebook page. That's a better place to go. It's just my name, Matt King. Um, Instagram is Matt.King Comedy. TikTok is also Matt.King Comedy. And YouTube is Matt King Comedy. So, and I've got like on TikTok and on YouTube, I have a 10-minute mini special that I put out. I work with a nonprofit organization called Sad Team 6. And that is the whole goal with that is to put on comedy shows and provide a place for laughter and healing, and to raise awareness for PTSD. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word on YouTube, but the kind of mentality that leads someone to unalive themselves. Our kind of mantra is one joke at a time. Our founder was a career firefighter for Canton, and had a close call himself, and had a lot of people close to him that he's lost. And he ended up, the way he came out of it was just shooting the breeze with the boys and just kind of busting each other's chops and hanging out and stuff. So that's kind of, we want to put on comedy shows around the country and provide kind of the safe space to be like, hey, I'm going through some crap right now, and just talking about it and stuff. So yeah, we did a show at the Canton Palace Theater, and there was like 800 and some people there, and there was 3 different camera angles, and part of the contract was you got a copy of your set. So you can find that on TikTok and on YouTube. It is called A Pile of Mulch. Spoiler, that is about the chair that I crushed.
I definitely have to check that out. And is there any specific shout outs to anybody out there that has gotten you to where you're at right now, or any shout outs in general?
Yeah, so we'll shout out Chris Snyder. He's the founder and president of Sad Team 6. He's a very encouraging guy. There's a company called Bad Habits Candle Company. They were kind of the first company to take interest in me. I was on a TikTok live, and there was like 4 people in there, and a couple of the guys that started that company popped in, and they just said, hey, how can we help you with your comedy career? And I said, you wouldn't want to sponsor like a broke unemployed comedian, would you? Because I was laid off at that time. And they did. They came through in a big way. Very supportive, very cool guys, and they're all veterans that own that. And portion of all the proceeds go to helping out veterans. Obviously, Krackpots Comedy Club gave me a place to start, and yeah, just my family, the people around me, they're encouraging me and not like, you need to grow up one day. They're like, okay, well, he's always going to be a child, so may as well just encourage him to do something, and hopefully he gets paid for it one day. So yeah, those are, I'd say that there's a bunch of people I left out, but.
Well, Matt King, it's definitely been a pleasure to interview you. I'm definitely happy that we've had a chance to get to know each other and have a good conversation. So
Yeah, dude.
appreciate your time. Wish you all the best, brother.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me.
As you know, social media has gone viral. And I know that you just recently mentioned to me now that you've gone viral for your videos.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, how have you used Instagram or other social medias to promote yourself, and how effective has it been for you?
It's actually been crazy because like I was trying forever to figure out these, you can fall into a deep rabbit hole of like algorithm tricks and stuff like that. and I couldn't find any that worked. And then I just kind of stumbled up, like I'd kind of been messing with the Trump impression a little bit. I threw it in my stand up just a little bit, and I noticed that. So like I stay away from politics completely in public life. I don't care what other people think. I know they don't care what I think, and you're gonna end up alienating someone if you take a stand one way or the other when you're just trying to make people laugh. So I don't see the importance. Nate Bargatze was one I forgot to mention. I'm actually going to see him in Cleveland this weekend. Um, he said one time, he's like, yeah, I just stay away from politics. I want everybody to like my stuff. I don't want to alienate anybody by, making them think one thing or another. So I noticed with Trump is he's just kind of like, he's a character. People that love him think that it's funny the way that he's a character, and people that hate him still laugh at impressions of him. So it's pretty safe if you stay out of the political part of it, and you just say something like, he would probably say something like this. So I was like, you know what? I've been thinking it would be cool if I did this thing where I like translated like a regular phrase and put it into like Trumpian speak. And I was getting ready to mow the grass, and I was like, let me just try this out. And I put it on, and then I kept looking at it. I was like, oh wow, oh wow, okay, oh wow, 100,000. I've never got 100,000 views before. I was like, okay, 200,000, and then it's 1,000,000. Okay, and then so then I just was like, well, they like that. Let's try another one, and they started liking that. And then the cool thing about that was I started getting a bunch of followers, and then they started watching a lot of the other material that I had put up other times. So they were seeing some of my stand-up bits. They were seeing some of my just random weird one-off things and stuff like that. And I started kind of getting some interesting followers. There's a couple of PGA Tour pros that followed me recently. I thought that was pretty cool. A former White House press secretary, I won't say who it is, but they followed me, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And just recently, I am dropping this name because I'm pretty proud of it. Marcia Gay Harden, the actress, just followed me on Instagram. I was like, I've made it. I've seen a lot of stuff with her, and this is cool. So yeah, so I just it's helped a lot just getting more eyes on my stuff. And I went live the other day for a little bit and just kind of was pushing a couple the headline show a little bit, and going to release a little bit of merch. I just designed a T-shirt that says "They're eating the grass." That's a that's a shout out to that video. So that'll be available on my shop on stickermule.com here shortly. I'll probably do it later tonight. But yeah, it's been awesome. I just told my girlfriend today, I was like, I think I'm gonna have to maybe get like an agent or something, because I've actually had people coming to me offering me like commercials and stuff like that, like for like small things. But I'm like, don't really know how to talk about like money and stuff like that. And I'm like, I might need to get a person. So, but it's been insane.
Pretty awesome. Last question before I forget, because I've been thinking about this for a while. You could do Lou Holtz, you could do okay. Impressions. Lou Holtz, RFK, Donald Trump. Is there anybody that you're working on? And as far as when you're coming up with the voices and trying to get it down, like what's that process like?
So like it goes back to like when I was a kid, my grandparents, they just were they were really good storytellers. And when they told a story, they would imitate each person in the story. And I think I just kind of picked up on that a little bit. From there, it was just, I always enjoyed playing with different voices and stuff. I think that's probably the ADHD and stuff like that. I think the first thing I did when I was in like kindergarten, I could do a pretty terrible British accent, and I would do that all the time. And then I got better and better at it, and people would laugh. I think the method for developing the impression is I'll just like when I'm driving or I'm by myself or something, I'll be like, maybe I can kind of do this one a little bit, and then I just try to slip into that voice and then just keep that voice while I talk about like everything. So I think I was driving to work. I had like a half hour commute, and I was trying to develop the Trump thing. So I was like, I would take a video of myself and then watch it back to see if I actually sounded like it or if I just thought I did. Because it definitely hits different when you're watching it and listening to it from a different perspective than inside your head. But I would just go on and on about, where I was working was Orville, Ohio. It's the home of Smucker's um, jelly and all that stuff. And so I was like,
Here we are in Orville, Ohio, the home of Smucker's jelly. We love Smucker's. We do. Sleepy Joe didn't love Smucker's, which is crazy because we know he loves a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
and just like random, and yeah, just kind of playing with it for as long.
So, impressions. You mentioned about how you evolved with the different impressions and things like that. But what is the process that goes behind it?
Yeah, just kind of observing and messing with it a little bit. And honestly, I watch other people do impressions too, try and pick up what they're kind of doing. Uh, Shane Gillis has an incredible Trump impression, and was watching. I think it's his first special that's on YouTube. He said that the way he does it is he says Trump does a thing where he says something and then he imitates himself saying the thing that he said he said. So it'll be like
This is a wonderful YouTube channel here. I walked in, I said, wow, what a wonderful YouTube channel. And I did, I said that.
and that's kind of where like so that kind of helped with the cadence a little bit. And then yeah, just kind of watching. He kind of turns his head kind of awkwardly sometimes when he's saying things, and like when he's doing a speech, he'll look at the one teleprompter for a little bit, and then he'll look at the other teleprompter for a little bit, then he'll gotta go off teleprompter for a little bit and freestyle a little bit, so yeah, just kind of trying to notice mannerisms and cadence and stuff like that. And then just the main thing is, like I said, just playing with it a little bit in the shower, in the car, whatever, just talking to yourself and like record it on your phone and then watch it back and see like, okay, and it kind of sounded like him. And just, yeah, eventually you either get it or you don't. There's some I've abandoned ship on. I can't think what they are, but I know there's some.
How long would you say that it takes you to perfectly mimic?
I don't know. Some stuff, it seems like it's kind of, I think it has to do with like kind of the timbre of your voice sometimes. Like Dan Soder has an incredible Macho Man Randy Savage, but his like vocal register is pretty similar to Macho Man's already when he's normally speaking. But then he did a lot of like noticing the little things that he did and stuff like that and kind of building it that way. So some stuff, if it's closer to my vocal register, I think is pretty quick. But other stuff, you kind of have to play with it for a while. I think I started working on Trump in like his first administration, and it was terrible because someone was like, "You can mimic people. Can you do a Donald Trump?" And I was just like, "My name's Donald Trump," and that's terrible, Like, so I don't know. I've been probably working on Trump for longer than I like to admit.
And that concludes another conversation with Justin. You can reach Justin Baptiz on any of his social media handles listed here. So, until we meet again, remember, it's Baptiz by Fire.